Money in football is a very strange thing. On one end of the spectrum, you have clubs that are literally backed by governments, creating a situation where money is truly infinite. On the other end of the spectrum, you have football clubs that have been established for a very long time but just simply don't have the money to keep going, slip into administration, and simply cease to exist. Clubs in the Premier League must abide by the financial fair play rules, which in a nutshell restricts Premier League clubs spending whatever they want. And to give an example, for instance, if a trillionaire bought a club like Brentford, then without financial fair play, they can literally do whatever they want. They could go, you know what, we want Mbappe, we'll pay you £1 billion a year. It's basically making sure that teams can't buy their way to the top and they actually have the profits and revenue to back up what they're spending. If you're found to be in breach of these rules, then consequences. Unless you still have unlimited money and the best lawyers in the world. How about a league like the Saudi Pro League, who operate outside of UEFA's jurisdiction, basically having no guidelines to follow, no rules to be broken, unlimited money to be spent, and nobody to stop them? Anyway, today we talk money over 3 different topics. First of all, financial fair play. Second of all, how the Saudi Pro League's unlimited money is affecting the Premier League. And finally, the absurd amount of money that some of the richest clubs in the world are able to pay the best players in the world. Financial fair play. In the Premier League, clubs have an allowable amount that you can lose per season, and your spending, on the other hand, is essentially kept in check by your profits. When you see Nottingham Forest and Everton with charges against them charges are for losing too much money. On the other hand, you have Man City, who basically just spent too much money. A lot of times. Now, I'm not going into any of that in great detail. I'm not going to overcomplicate it, and not all of what I said is 100% true, but for the most part it is. Those charges can become a little bit daunting to look at, and it's easier just to kind of classify them all as something similar. Both Everton and Nottingham Forest aren't happy with the point deduction. Man City's day will definitely come. It definitely will eventually, and for the charges that they're going to get, I have no idea what the consequences are going to be. If you compare something like Nottingham Forest and Everton to Man City, you've got 115 times of what they've done. Now, of course, how they've brought the rules aren't exactly the same, so, you know, and Man City do have a lot of money, and let's be real, they can probably pay for whoever they want to represent them in court, and I will assume in the end the consequences probably aren't going to be as dire as you actually think. But while all of this is going on, you have to think about Chelsea. €121 million for Enzo Fernandez in the 2022-2023 season from Benfica. He's a good player, he's just not worth that money. €116 million for Moises Caicedo from Brighton in the 2023-24 season. Once again, decent player, not worth half of it to be honest. €113 million for Romelu Lukaku in the 2021-2022 season from Inter Milan. Romelu Lukaku is a good player. At the age of 28, was he ever worth €113 million? No chance. €80.4 million for Wesley Fofana from Leicester City in the 2022-2023 season. Once again, good player, not worth that amount of money. Not really anywhere near, to be honest. €80 million for Kai Havertz from Bayer Leverkusen in the 2020-2021 season. This one I can kind of see. Now, Havertz hasn't really kind of developed towards his full potential. Everyone thought he would be better than he actually basically has turned out to be at both Chelsea and Arsenal, but I can see this purchase being somewhat logical. A lot of teams were in for him, and to be honest, at the time he was showing great potential, and he still is. So this one's not too bad. €80 million for Kepa Arrizabalaga from Athletic Club in the 2018-2019 season. That's just insane money. Insane money. €70 million for Mikhailo Mudryk in the 2022-2023 season from Shakhtar Donetsk. I'm sorry, but this purchase is just absolute insanity. It's almost as if you're on a FIFA career mode, you've looked down the list of potentials of young players and gone, you know what, we'll go for him. And Shakhtar have just gone, oh, it's Chelsea. They're not really sure what they're doing with the money, and they've got a lot of it. 70 million, oh, good deal. But the list goes on. 65 million for Marc Cucurella from Brighton in the 2022-2023 season. Ridiculous transfer fee. €62.1 million for Romeo Lavia from Southampton in the 2023-24 season. Just ridiculous money. €60 million for Christopher Nkunku from Leipzig in the 2023-24 season. Not a bad player at all. Is he worth €60 million? Arguably probably is. He hasn't quite worked out in a Chelsea shirt so far, he's been injured a lot. so I can kind of let them off for this one. But the point is, there is so many ridiculous transfers. And you would think that all of these ridiculous transfers would correlate with the club being on the up. But that's just not the case. It's the complete opposite. Chelsea, at this moment in time, sit in 11th place with a very slim chance of obtaining European football. They don't look convincing at all in any stretch of the imagination. They've got an owner who, to be honest, doesn't know what he's doing. He's got a load of money. Well, he has a lot of money. The club at this point don't have a lot of money. And you look at the teams around them at the moment, they've got Fulham beneath them by 1 point. You've got Newcastle above them, Wolverhampton above them, Brighton above them, West Ham above them, Man United, Tottenham. Are Chelsea better than any of those teams at the moment? Probably not. They've got the players to be one of the best teams in the Premier League. Chelsea are always going to have good shirt sales. They have a good following. The gate receipts are a constant. But there's no European football, and there's absolutely no sight of it at all. And even if it was, it would probably be the Conference League or maybe the Europa League at absolute best, but no chance the Champions League. Of course, Chelsea have been monitored pretty closely this season, as you can imagine. Experts now predict that Chelsea are not going to really be anywhere near close to staying within the FFP guidelines this season. And you can see why that will be the case. The club has got virtually no money, no increase in revenue, no prospects of European football, and a massive receipt. A massive receipt of transfers, players they've bought who just simply have not performed. The bottom line is, it seems like they're going to have to sell at least 100, 150 million worth of players to have any chance of abiding by the FFP guidelines by June 2024 this year. But how is that going to... It's just not going to work. They're constantly talking about selling Gallagher because he's pure profit. It's just a mess. And as a misery compiler just yesterday, Man City and Chelsea were warned that they could face expulsion from the Premier League if guilty of FFP breaches. Now, I don't believe that for 1 second, to be completely honest. That's what's being reported. I'm not sure how really credible that is. I don't really know if that's realistic. I don't know. I mean, it kind of seems realistic considering City have 115 charges and, Nottingham Forest and Everton are just getting a couple of points deducted, it seems. Having said that, Nottingham Forest have just, relatively recently been promoted. Everton are building a new ground, so they both have a bit of an excuse, whereas Chelsea have no excuse at all. But who is the mastermind behind Chelsea's downfall? Well, Chelsea are owned by a company called Blueco. Well, Todd Boehly is the chairman, and Blueco took over Chelsea in 2022. A lot of those transfers that I read out before were prior to 2022, so they can't be fully blamed for the downfall. However, I feel sorry for this man. He has unlimited money, let's be real. He doesn't know what he's doing with it. That's just the facts. This is just black and white evidence. It's just proof that you can't just put anyone in charge of a football club who has money. If they don't know what they're doing, then they're going to mess it up. Some of the transfers really do look like it's straight out of Football Manager. It's mental. Now, my issue with the financial fair play situation that we have at the moment is that it doesn't really seem like anyone is actually thinking about the consequences of what these teams are doing. What happens if Man City are found guilty of these 115 charges? What happens to the trophies that they've won? What happens to the Champions League? What happens to the Premier Leagues? Now, if I was, second place in the Premier League and Man City gets stripped of the Premier League, does that mean that the Premier League goes to the second place? I mean, I wouldn't be happy with winning the Premier League with second place. But then again, does a team who's cheated for years, essentially, with money, deserve to have the trophies if they're found guilty? There's just too many questions. Like this season, what happens if Everton get relegated because of the point deduction? They appeal the point deduction, and then the point deduction gets wiped, but they've already been relegated. Like, what happens then? The Saudi Pro League, one of the fastest growing footballing leagues in the world. Teams funded by one of the richest governments in the world, serving as a haven for footballers nearing the end of their career who just want a payout. Any footballer that says otherwise is lying. But there's a reason they can attract these players. Of course, it's the money. No financial fair play, no regulations. Just take whatever you want. Money is limited to us, and we don't have to abide by anything. The Saudi Pro League has expressed their interest in trying to join the UEFA Champions League, formerly known as the European Cup, Europe. But it's having a very big impact on other leagues around the world. The reality is, teams around Europe, the best teams in Europe, cannot afford to pay the wages that these Saudi clubs can pay. Like I said before, there's no financial fair play. They don't have to abide by any rules. They can pay as much as they want, and they have unlimited money. But the thing is that teams around the world are being bought up by these basically mock organisations that are essentially the Saudi Arabian government. For instance, Newcastle United. If we take a look at Kylian Mbappe at PSG, he's going to move to Real Madrid in the summer. He's supposed to be going to Real Madrid for the past couple of seasons. PSG, to try to make him stay, gave him loyalty bonuses. They basically, at some point, practically gave him control of some part of the club. His wages are absolutely astronomical. And to be fair, why not? He is probably one of the best players in the world at the moment. But PSG don't win Champions Leagues, and Mbappe wants Champions Leagues. So he's going to go to Real Madrid, fair enough. But where was his other choice? Where could he realistically have gone to? If he demands such a high wage, who can pay that? And for the best footballer in the world to really have Real Madrid and the Saudi Pro League on the cards is just insane. And I guess that speaks a lot to the personality of the footballer. If we swap Kylian Mbappe with Erling Haaland, and let's say he wants to leave Man City, where does he go to? Well, there's a few teams around the world that can pay his wages. We've got Real Madrid, we've got PSG, and we've got the Saudi Pro League. I guarantee he's not going to go to the Saudi Pro League because he's just not that kind of player. And we saw the last summer transfer window when Saudi Arabian clubs were offering a ridiculous amount of money for Mo Salah, reportedly over 200 million. The man is in his 30s. It's a good job Liverpool are in a good financial position, otherwise, that is a no-brainer to sell. Granted, he's one of the best players in the Premier League. There's no debate. But that sort of money for a third, how old is Mo Salah? 31, 32? Like I've said a couple of times now, money is unlimited, and there's no rules that they have to abide by. It's insanity. Absurd transfer fees in football. Now, I'm not going to be that person who sits here and say, why are footballers paid so much? All they do is kick a ball around. Why aren't doctors paid more than them? Number one, the football economy is massively inflated. Number two, football players generate a massive amount of income for football clubs. For instance, if you sign Lionel Messi, okay, he's nearing the end of his career. What is he, 35, 36 years old? It still makes financial sense to pay him a lot of money and potentially even pay a big transfer fee because the amount of money he's going to generate for the club is unfathomable. Now, I talked about Chelsea's spending before in this video, and Chelsea truly are one of the most extreme examples of ridiculous spending. Not only for the transfer fees, but also for the wages. Having said that, financial fair play is definitely having a big impact on spending. We observed a very, very dry and barren transfer market over January, and that is a direct impact of FFP. Now, something else that is quite prominent is English players in the Premier League being inflated in price. For example, Declan Rice from West Ham to Arsenal for €116 million. Declan Rice is a good player, but he is not worth that money. That is a ridiculous transfer fee. Once again, Cole Palmer to Chelsea from Man City. He was valued at €18 million, sold for 47. Mason Mount from Chelsea to Man United. €64 million for Mason Mount. That is just astonishing. Newcastle signing Harvey Barnes for €44 million. Harvey Barnes is a decent player, but he's 25. €44 million is not a good fee. The one thing that all of these players that have in common, that have gone for, let's be honest, inflated fees, is the fact that they're all English. Their nationality is English. They might not be fully English, but that is the nationality of choice. That's who they represent at a national level. In one breath, financial fair play is telling everybody to spend less, but at the same time, the Premier League have more rules that mandate that teams must have a certain amount of English players playing for them, which then pushes the prices up of English players, but they're not allowed to spend that money. It's actually quite a fine line. It really is. Anyway, that's just a short insight into football's very confusing financial situation at the moment. Financial fair play, crippling teams, but also serving a purpose. The Saudi Pro League and the Saudi government, with its unlimited money, willing to basically spend anything to grow the league, and the ridiculously inflated prices of some players in the Premier League and across world football. Anyway, if you did enjoy today's video, then maybe you'll enjoy my last video, where we took a look at the real reasons behind UEFA updating their Champions League format. Anyway, this video did take quite a while to make, so if you did enjoy it, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.